right. We're picking up with part two of what you were never told about intimacy in dating. And if you missed part one, I'll try to link it below. But yeah, you should start there.
And some people were horrified that while we were dating, we were French kissing.
Yes,
Ah,
we were pretty affectionate. So both of our love languages is physical touch. Hold on, let me switch slides here so we can see what we're covering in this.
there we go.
There we go. Keep us on track. So yeah, we're covering how much intimacy is too much, what we were told, and how and why our thinking shifted, and kind of the things we discovered in the process.
Yeah, and so yeah, I don't think either one of us, when we were, let's say, in our early 20s, would have thought about, oh, yeah, let's go French kissing
No.
boyfriend or girlfriend. And like I was sharing earlier, I had been in relationships and kissing, period, other than a peck on the cheek or the forehead, I'd never done
Correct.
before. And so it's fascinating in hindsight getting to look at that shift and why, later we're going to talk about checklists, right?
Mhm.
And so why at this point did we feel safe and secure in doing something that arguably there are like things being transferred through saliva,
Yeah.
right? Like that's a real thing. There's hormones and heaven knows what all like that is passing between you know human bodies. That's a real thing.
Mhm.
So we're not trying to discount that in any way. But why did we end up at this place? We weren't even engaged, and yet we were French kissing. And you could say conservative Christian. Some people would label us that.
Mhm.
I just prefer Christian seeking to follow Christ,
Yeah.
right? Wherever he leads. And one thing we're going to touch on is rule based or a checklist.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this podcast and you're looking for a checklist,
Here's all
don't,
the things I
yeah,
have. If I do all of these things, then
then
I'll
you
be
can
good.
do this, right? Yeah. Don't go out and say, well, French kissing is okay when you're in a boyfriend girlfriend relationship. See, I've been in boyfriend girlfriend relationships in the past before
Mhm.
I knew my wonderful wife, before she was my wife, when we were dating, and I didn't do those things. So what made the difference? Like that's the backdrop because if someone takes this sweetheart and they go, here's a checklist.
Mm.
I and this girl or this guy, we've agreed to be in a relationship. Now we can start kissing. We've lost what we're trying to communicate in this podcast.
They said on the Edenic Intimacy podcast that
That you
it's
can
okay.
kiss. Yeah, we're not making a checklist. We're
Correct.
we're telling a story that for us has been an amazing journey with God
With God.
and throwing out our preconceived
Yes.
checklists because he had a different idea.
Right. So yeah, and like I talked about in part one, we really had laid a foundation. It wasn't us just meeting for the first time and oh, let's get all kissy kissy and neck with each other, We had laid this strong foundation of respect and knowing each other, knowing the path we were on. We talked about a lot of things. And at that point, when we did start being more physically affectionate with each other, we were in a committed dating relationship.
Mhm.
Oh my. So the phone went out. You better silence your phone. Okay. So I think that's a good segue into talking about respect and communication
Absolutely.
and the importance of that. Um, so yeah, like we said, it's not about a checklist. Do this and you can do these things and you can't do these things. And so long as you meet these checklists, you're okay. It's about the two of you with your unique pasts and your unique personalities and your unique walks with God coming together and saying, how can we honor God together in this relationship? And it's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah, and not anything goes. I mean, that's,
Right.
it isn't
Exactly.
like, well, I think I've got a wonderful relationship with God and my significant other, and so this is okay. We can do this, this, and this.
Mm.
There are some things that I would argue aren't, but then not a but God is walking, right? If you're walking with God, God is leading you and will be lead you careful, but it won't go against his word.
Right.
That's
But I think not having a checklist is scary for people
oh, it frightens you to death sometimes,
because it's
sweetheart.
like you want to have that. Okay, I need, at least for me, I'm a very checklist person. My sweetheart could tell you, my husband could tell you that I have checklists for everything. I like to.
Just last night, you were getting frustrated with me because I was telling part of my story, and you're like, "Yeah, yeah, but that doesn't apply. Like, give me a checklist."
I need a checklist. So I get done during the day. I check it off my list, and so I like to have that. And not having that, it can leave some people feeling vulnerable. Like, how do I know we're not going to fall into sin if we don't have this? So how can that tie into what do we need then?
Well, let me.
How do we know what
Yeah.
is acceptable? And how do we know that anything doesn't just go?
Well, let's ask this question: if the person you're dating, and in our case, it was each other. Let's work with the theoretical though. Someone's dating, and if they're going to get married, they don't know that yet, but let's say it's moving in that direction. Let's ask the question: do you need to respect each other inside a marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think most people would say, yeah, that's important, but maybe not fully know what that looks like. But respect is something that should be across every level of the relationship.
So you're saying you don't just get married and suddenly you have
Respect goes out the door.
You suddenly have full access to their body and you can touch them whenever and wherever you like. And
Grope them out in the middle of public because we're married and no.
so, yeah, and I think that can actually be a downside of having too much of the rule based in courtship or dating, whatever you want to call it or however it works for you, getting to know someone, having too much of a rule based where we leave everything for marriage, not building intimacy at an appropriate level for where you are. You get to marriage and suddenly there's all holds are gone, and there can be a lot of, and if you haven't talked about these things or figured them out a little bit in dating, then suddenly you're floundering in marriage. Like, whoa, you don't like. There needs to be consent, and there needs to be mutual um, agreement to sexual intimacy and all of these different things. And it's not that one person owns the other to just do whatever they want with them. And that sometimes happens in marriages.
And maybe it looks like in a relationship, courtship, dating, whatever you want title you want to hang on it. I know there's semantics on the differences there, but a relationship, right?
Yeah.
We're not getting into the weeds on that. So a relationship, but for some people, maybe holding hands is going to be as far as they go in physical intimacy before marriage.
Right.
And we're not here to poo poo that and say, oh no, that's wrong. We're here to say, if that's where God is leading, rejoice in it.
Right.
Hold each one of those 10 fingers tenderly and with respect and love and the utmost care. And so I want to ask you this question, sweetheart. What stands out in your mind as respect building? So from your end of the equation, what were you like, wow, he's respecting me and this is how I'm respecting him? How was respect building in your heart and in your mind in regards to our relationship?
So I would say a couple things. Something I noticed about you that made me feel very safe with you and respect you for it was that when we were earlier on, I never felt like you were trying to get something. Which I had felt sometimes with other guys I knew. Like they were always trying to just see how close they could get, how far they could get with me, how many lines they could cross without giving too much of themselves, like not commitment wise, like how much can I get from her without having to commit too much. So you can kind of sense that with certain things. How close they want to be to you and how much they want to commit to you in the process and things like that. And so I had felt that before. And with you, there was I felt complete safety that you weren't just out to see how far you could get with me. And that I wasn't afraid. I remember even visiting you in person for the first time. It's not like we had known each other in person before that. We had talked a fair amount, so I knew a little bit about you, but meeting him for the first time in person, it was a bit scary in the sense of what am I doing? Is this something I actually want to
Is
figure
he
out?
an axe murderer?
Well, okay. I did wonder about that. Actually, it was more like you were so nice. I'm like, either he's the nicest guy on the earth, planet Earth, or he's an axe murderer. And so I had to figure that out. But no, not actually. It was more, I felt amidst the turmoil of trying to figure out if I wanted to go down this path in my life, I felt very safe. And I remember even telling people back home, friends and family, like, I don't know if I can stick this out. I don't know if he's the guy for me, but I'm very physically safe. I don't feel pressured at all to do things I don't want to do. I just felt very safe with you, and that I really appreciate it. So,
Mm.
um, actually, it's a little bit funny because in some ways you respected boundaries a little too much. Do you remember
Got
that?
on your
It
nerves.
did. So we'd be doing activities. Like one time we were cooking in the kitchen and his family was there, parents were there.
Mhm.
Um, and he would go out of his way to make enough space for me to walk by so our arms didn't brush or whatever. And I
Mhm.
was like, man, he really is going out of his way to make sure we don't touch, like in any way. And then also
So I
when,
wanted to respect that.
right, the next day we were doing an activity, we went out on a date, just the two of us. And I think you would apologize if you bumped me by accident. Oh, sorry.
Did I bump you?
And then I think I eventually just said, it's okay if our arms bump each other. Like, I'm not going to bite or something like that. And yeah, I wanted a certain level of comfortability with each other. So we're not like, oh, sorry, I got to keep 3 feet away at all times. So natural comfortability with each other, but also, and I part of that because I didn't feel like I had to constantly keep you off of me.
Right,
Yeah,
right. You weren't having to set a barricade to keep
right,
me away.
exactly. So that really meant a lot to me. The other thing that I think was huge for us was I felt we could talk about anything.
Yes.
From very early on. That would be like our first in-person meeting, um, or our second in that case, because you had
Right.
visited me and
Right.
now I was
Correct.
visiting you. First time visiting you though. Um, so anytime there was a little, oh, what do we do about like I'm feeling uncomfortable with this or whatever, I knew we could talk about it. And so then that foundation led into when we were dating. And if there was, I think there was, we mentioned in the last part that there was that one time when you were just putting your arm around me and pulling me close, and your hand maybe brushed the side of my chest. And
Hmm.
it's like, hey, I'm a little uncomfortable with that. Watch what your hands are doing.
And I wasn't trying to.
And I knew that.
Mm.
But it was something we could talk about. Another thing we did is because I actually, throughout the process of adding and growing our intimacy appropriate for where we were, there was a fair amount of fear on my part because of all the things we had been told. I'm like, sweetheart,
Mm.
are we going to get blindsided and suddenly wake up and find that we've
We're
slept together and
in
we're
bed and you're pregnant.
don't want to be blindsided. I don't want to go to a certain level. And people are a lot of people are telling us, oh, you know what that leads to, and watch out, you're gonna get pregnant, and like, and so it made me afraid. I didn't want to be unwise or just self-righteous and
No, we weren't.
nothing's gonna happen. We're fine, and then find ourselves in a situation.
And no, we weren't sleeping with each other. We weren't having sex. So it
No.
wasn't that people were saying, "Oh, you're having sex, you're going to get pregnant." It's just it's kissing or
Right.
you rubbing my back or things like that. It's like, oh,
Very comfortable with each other again because we felt safe and respected on both sides. And so, but I was still nervous about it. And what we kept coming to was this idea of we're always going to talk about it. If there's ever a point
hmm
where we're like,
hmm
I'm uncomfortable with this, we can tell each other, and will respect that. And that brought again a lot of safety. Okay, it's not like now that we've introduced kissing, now we just have to kiss. If one of us ever is like, I'm feeling uncomfortable, then we work through
The
that.
option to back down was always there, and we were gonna support each other 100%
Right.
if we needed to, you know, say, "Whoa, this is a bit too much." Well, I can remember the first time I ran my fingers through your hair, and I was like, "Whoa, this is a bit over." overwhelming. I think the last time I did this to someone was running as a kid, running my fingers through my mom's hair, and I was like, okay, we're gonna save this for a little bit down the road. And you supported me, even though you love having your hair played with. You weren't like, oh, please play with my hair. Like you supported that.
Whenever you were ready. It was not something that was arousing for me or anything. It was
Right.
just, if I wanted
It's
to
just
feel
an
good.
overload for me.
It was a lot.
Kissing, no problem. Playing. And at that point, I guess in all fairness, we hadn't started kissing yet.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
that was when. Yeah.
But it's interesting. So I'm going to take a little trip into the weeds, and then I'll be right back. So it's interesting because there's a whole culture built around putting the burden of purity on the woman because guys are animals. They can't help their drive. They can't help their eyes. So you dress a certain way, you act a certain way. You don't let them get in too close because you're keeping them pure by not allowing them to have access. And that's in a nutshell. I'm sure there's plenty of people that would take issue with that description of it, but that's how I see it. And this is my opinion, and this is our podcast, so we can say whatever we want. And I would say this was a two-way street for us, but definitely for me, part of it is I wanted to respect you and I wanted to help you cross the finish line and meet your goals. And we had a shared goal.
And same thing for me.
Yeah. And we communicated that.
Right.
Communication was key. I think back to the one story you like to mention about that kind of blew you away on my first visit, and there's the question that gets raised, avoiding the appearance of evil, right? And there are safe answers. We were all riding in a car with a bunch of other young people, and you, I think, had brought that up in a situation that had happened, and you kind of like
get everyone's opinion.
Right.
Hey, what do you think? So and so, what do you think? And
I'm the odd one out. You all knew each other, and I didn't. I knew you a little bit. This is like the second day of being in person, but I just waded off into what I believed, and I articulated how I viewed it, and I didn't try and hedge in a safe way that would just agree with the masses, and you could just be like, well, he's kind of safe. He, thinks like everybody else. I tried to articulate clearly from my life experiences and my journey with God what I believed on that. And what did that do to you?
That floored me because it was very outside the box. It was very non-checklist. and I was like, whoa, I like how this guy thinks. And that definitely kept me wanting to get to know you more.
And then we had a lot of deep conversations.
Right.
About numerous things, but that communication is so key, and they were fine.
Yeah.
Like we started thriving off of communication.
Yeah.
But communication sometimes brings up hard things, and we had to navigate through communicating some hard stuff as well.
Which we can get into probably in another podcast.
Right. But communication, I can't underscore it enough.
Right. So on those lines, I think the problem is with checklists when you both come into it being like, here's what I can do, here's what I can't do, or here's what is right, quote unquote, because whatever circle says it's right. Whatever my parents say this is okay, my pastor says this is okay or not okay. And so if you come into a relationship with that, well, you both talk about it, you both agree to it, and then you don't talk again.
Excuse me?
You okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just getting all choked up looking at you. You're so beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, so if you have a checklist and that's what you're following, you tend to not talk as much about things. Because you both have agreed to this and okay, we're safe, we're good, we're not going to get into trouble. But when we built our intimacy slowly over time, in accordance with where we were in the relationship, now suddenly when we did get a little uncomfortable or we did have to deal with getting a little bit aroused, now we were talking about these things. We were communicating. Whoa, when you did this, I felt this way. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Can we work through that? And that is so key for setting yourself up for marriage. Because I think that's a huge problem. People don't talk about these things in dating. And then they get into marriage and now suddenly everything's okay, so they think. And now they're still not talking about it. So, um,
I like noises on my phone. What can I say?
I thought you had shut it all
Oh,
off.
I thought I had to.
So anyway, we're very real on this podcast.
We were just talking today how you just want it to be like how the fun conversations we
Yes.
have. So that's what we're making it.
So we don't edit this. Our phones go off sometimes in the middle. If someone knocks on the door in the middle of it,
Oh,
we
yeah.
do a part two.
There we go. But along the lines of communication, I want to go back to my first major relationship, the girl that I was engaged to in my early 20s. And what's interesting is we did a lot of the checklist stuff. Like, oh yeah, I agree. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We're not going to do this. We are okay with this.
Right. So
No kissing.
let's take having sex before marriage or no kissing before marriage. So instead of both coming with a checklist and saying, well, I don't want to get kissed before marriage. Oh, yeah, I don't want to get kissed before marriage. Okay, check. And moving on, like you might both agree. And you, sweetheart, you were excellent at this, pushing the boundaries of the concept, but not pushing the boundaries of morality,
No.
but in talking about it. So what you need to do is if you both agree on it, one of you needs to turn it around and say, why not have sex before marriage? Now, you might freak the other person out because they might think, oh no, you're wanting to have sex before marriage, right? So, and if you freak them out that bad and they run away screaming, well, you probably saved yourself a life of hardship.
Yeah.
Conversely, if someone's like, oh yeah, you want to have sex, let's jump in bed, you run away screaming because you've saved yourself a life of hardship in marriage. So, but you and me discovered this when we would take those checklist items and we'd actually start talking about it. There was so much I learned from you. There was stuff you learned from me. And we both refined our thinking. And we both refined our thinking in such a way that then we actually were on the same page. Then we actually could respect each other's position, even if we didn't agree with the other person. There's some things how I want to do things in life and how you want to do some things in life. There's areas where we don't, to this day, want to do the exact same things. And we respect and support each other because there's an understanding because we communicated.
Yes, exactly. There were some things early on with some of the intimacy where, because of my more rule-based background, I was afraid of. Or I remember one time I was like, we can never again hold hands in the dark.
We're married. We're engaged.
Just I felt like, oh no, maybe this is wrong. Or it made me feel a little uncomfortable that maybe we were going to lead down like a slippery slope and it was going to lead us to other things. And instead of just being like, okay, we're never going to do that again, we talked through it and we talked about it. And you found out why I said that. What was behind that? What was the
I had
fear
to dig
behind
a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know.
I didn't know at first either. I was just
You
like,
just didn't want to do it.
it gave me a feeling and I was like, oh, I can't do this again. And so we talked through it, we talked about it, and I started realizing, oh, well, this is because I don't want to go down this road. Well, then make sure we don't go down that road, but that doesn't mean that this thing prior to it is wrong.
See, if you start to communicate it, your respect will probably grow. If you seek and desire an understanding in that communication, you start to communicate, your respect will grow, your intimacy will grow. And wherever God leads you, if that's forward, then I'm going to wager that your physical intimacy appropriately will follow.
Right. So what have we discovered, or what did we discover in that whole process? What were some of the things for you?
Communication. And knowing that you had my back. Knowing that we could talk about anything.
Yeah.
And I mean anything. I laid in bed. I laid in bed awake at nights thinking, is there any little dirty secret I haven't told I can dig up and tell her to shock her with?
So we got further along.
As we got further along, you know, in engagement. when we were engaged.
Right.
Is there anything that would make any sort of a difference to her
In our marriage. Yeah.
that I haven't told you?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I think for me, I started to realize that I think what floored me was the things that I thought would be so hard that people had told us oh, you're gonna have, once you start kissing, it's gonna be so hard to stop. It's gonna be hard to not take each other's clothes off and get in bed together. Um, and that just never happened because we had this foundation and we had the respect and communication. And that almost scared me more than if it had happened. I would
right, because you were waiting to fight against
Yes.
like, oh no, I gotta run out of here and
Yeah.
keep my clothes on, like,
And that never
and
happened.
that fight never came that you were all prepared for, and it never came.
And so I was like, is it just going to blindside us one day? And it just never did and never did. And we kept communicating and we kept building that together. Um, Now, what did blindside me a little bit, or it was more difficult than I ever thought it would be, was saying goodbye at night. I hated that. I wanted so badly to stay the night with you, not to have sex together, but just that emotional connection of
Being in the same
being in the
space
same space
with the
and
person you love.
art.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most amazing things in marriage is that we get to stay the night together. I love that.
And that was harder for you than me.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. But we did it. We made it all through. We never just said, oh, well, we'll just sleep together tonight. Even if we don't have sex, we'll just sleep together. We never did that because it was important to us to maintain those boundaries until we were
I
married.
probably would have let you stay in the same proximity as me, sleep in the same proximity, not pulling our clothes off in bed together, but you and your sleeping bag, me and my sleeping bag, whatever.
Right.
I probably would have been okay with that, but I knew it was something important to you that you didn't want to do. And so I could, instead of saying, well, that's your battle, I'm okay with it, but if you don't, you gotta, no. Instead of that, I did what I could to support that and
Right.
to help you honor what you felt was important. And that's critical that both
Mhm.
support each other.
Yeah.
Both are propelling each other toward their goal, even if you don't share that same identical feeling
Yeah.
or goal or whatever. This is important.
Yeah.
Propel each other. And if you find yourself that you just can't support the other person in making their dream a reality in this relationship, then you need to start regrouping and going, maybe God has a different plan for us.
I think the main thing that hit home for me in all of it, especially looking back at it, was just how thankful I am that we didn't just stick in the, what do you call it, the comfort zone of a checklist. Because that set us up so well for marriage, moving into marriage, being able to talk about anything, to have respect and boundaries and intimacy, which you still need to have in marriage.
You have to.
So it's not just like suddenly one person can take whatever they want from the other or, initiate and just make it happen because now you're married. Like there has to be communication and respect even after marriage. And the ability to build that in our dating relationship was so beautiful for me.
And maybe we need to do a podcast sometime and call it the marriage night or something. But
Yeah.
but the foundation that we laid in intimacy appropriate for where we were in our relationship, communication and respect, not a rule-based checklist.
Right.
It paid off. It paid dividends on our marriage night. It was
Yes.
amazing.
It was. And it actually, I think it makes you stay closer to God in the process because, again, there's a certain comfort level or comfort zone with a checklist, and you never talk to God about anything because, well, I'm doing what I should and everything's good and I'm checking off my list. And it's all you and doing it on your own in some ways.
When you don't know what to do, you take it to God.
Yeah.
When you do know what to do, you should still take it to
Yeah.
Him. But you take it to God because you're like, God, you brought me here.
what is going to honor you?
Yeah,
What-
you've gotta blaze the way.
Right. And there is his, I mean, you look to his word. What does his word say? What is black and white for us from his word? And then in the things where there's no black and white, we're not just doing what somebody said, so and so said, or some group says, like we're praying and we're figuring it out together, looking to God at every single step.
I got a story on that was kind of ironic,
Mhm.
but maybe not on this podcast, but sometime I'll share that
Definitely.
where God and me argued about what's pretty clear in his word. And he was like telling me something different.
Mhm.
No, but he was using communication to get my attention.
Yeah.
So, so I have a question. We don't want to drag this out too long, but I have a question because maybe some people are out there, they've listened to other podcasts or they've listened to people tell them. So, and I'll ask you and then I'll answer it for myself, but in dating and in engagement, in physical contact that we had, maybe even with no physical contact, but was it ever arousing? Like physically arousing? So some people would say sexually arousing. Was it ever arousing?
Yes, at times. I don't think you can engage in certain things that don't give you a rush of hormones or, a little bit of a boost in your hormones. Um, but in my mind and how we worked through it was that arousal in and of itself is not wrong. It's just a chemical reaction in some ways. If you completely cut yourself off from all physical touch, you might get aroused if somebody puts their hand on your arm.
Mm-hmm.
It's from the newness of it and also the hormones that are involved, the love and all of that. And so, yes, there was a certain level of arousal, but it's kind of in my mind like it's not something that just because I feel a little bit aroused, now I suddenly need to go all the way and become sexually involved with you. Um, it's like, no, just it was, I needed to understand it. Okay, this is making me
And we talked about
we
that.
talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was never something that it meant you had to act upon it. Like, oh, I'm feeling aroused, therefore we have to either have sex or we have to go into the opposite room with each other and not, take a break. It was more like, no, a matter of fact type of deal. I'm feeling a little aroused. I'm
And
not going to act on that.
right.
It's not wrong. It's just a normal reaction to love and affection. And that's where that stopped. Having that, it made it so we weren't afraid of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have to act on arousal. That's a lie of the devil. It goes along with he comes to you with a temptation. And I'm not saying arousal is temptation. I'm using this for comparison purposes.
Arousal is a very scientific,
it's very scientific, exactly. But like what the devil likes to do is he likes to come and put a little thought. He comes in and whispers in our ear. Pss, 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 pss. And then he goes, "Oh, you dirty person. Did you hear what just came in your brain?" And so arousal isn't dirty, but the devil will try and play a dirty trick with you on arousal. He'll be like, "Oh, you're aroused.
Well,
you might as well keep going." So be careful because the
Yeah.
devil would love to exploit this against you,
Yeah.
where it's our firm belief that it is not wrong. Like, was I aroused at times? Yes, I was. And we'd talk about it, and we had a clear understanding that if this is ever something that either one of us wants to say, "Whoa, this is just a bit much. I don't feel safe or comfortable being here," then we'd talk about it and we'd back off. But we actually never. I don't think we ever did because we would talk about it.
Right. And also, it wasn't, for me anyway, it wasn't so much a thing in the mind, like I was conjuring up images and, thinking about, oh, if we do this or that. It was more just a physical reaction in my body of hormones, rising levels of hormones. Um, and then, yeah, we didn't act on it. We didn't make it a big, terrible thing, like, oh no.
We need to do a podcast on arousal because there is the physical part of
I
it.
should say
and
episode.
An episode.
It'd be the same podcast.
Oh yeah, that's
It'd be an
right.
episode.
I don't know anything about these things. We should do an episode on arousal because there is the physical, very real things. and then there's the mind, and you can get carried away. And I would say that's where most problems come from, is getting carried away in the mind.
Mhm.
I'd say that's where a lot of infidelity comes from inside of marriages.
Yes.
People get carried away with a fantasy of something, and then
Mhm.
arousal comes along, and so forth and so on. So should do that sometime. What else, sweetheart? So here we are, like intimacy
Mhm.
before marriage. Is there anything you'd change from what we did?
Honestly, no. It was a beautiful thing. It was built and progressed slowly over time in accordance with where we were. There was so much respect involved. We saved the things we saved, sexual intimacy for marriage. We saved all of the private areas. We never uncovered or touched in those places while we were just dating or engaged. Before we were married, we were very respectful of those areas. Um, but we also were building our communication around intimacy.
We knew where each one of us were with
Yes.
finances, like
All of
before
those
marriage and
things.
stuff. So it was getting ready. It's maybe like birds getting a nest ready,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And then instead of just, like I said, being stuck in a comfortable checklist, we were constantly having to work together, go to God, and make sure that we were following His guiding in our lives, not just doing things on our own.
And it's hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes effort.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't want to invest the effort, go find yourself a checklist and keep your hands off.
Yeah.
And something else I wanted to mention is we were progressing to spending our lives together.
Mm-hmm.
If at any time we
That's true.
thought, and we had a couple hiccups along the way, where it was a not hiccup.
After we acted in intimacy, or do you mean because we had broken up a couple times before we were actually in an official relationship?
Correct. But I guess my point is when when there were those breakups or things, we didn't just continue to do everything the same. There, we recognized, okay, there is a change, and we're not going to keep going forward, spending a bunch of time together,
Mm-hmm.
talking, texting all the time. We're not going to do that.
Right.
So if you're not progressing towards something, if you're just out playing the field,
Getting to not in a bad way necessarily, but maybe just
getting to know somebody, then intimacy appropriate for where you are. But if you ever see that it's now changing and we're not going forward, don't keep trying to progress the intimacy, intellectual, spiritual, whatever, in such an intimate way with a person that it's time to hit the pause button at that point. And so I just wanted to underline and underline and underline that we were progressing somewhere. This wasn't just, oh, we're dating, so let's do whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Well, I think we maybe have covered everything that we needed to for this one.
Any last words of wisdom?
Take it to God.
Yeah.
Continue looking to Him at each step. Make sure that you are walking in accordance with His leading and His word and not just the framework someone else has laid out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, stay tuned. There's more to come. We've got a lot of topics we can cover.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been fun. Thank you.
We're just two real people.
Two real people sharing our story, sharing the things we've learned.
Dare to be intimate with God.